Marian, it's wonderful to meet you.
So nice to meet you from the shoulders up, at least.
Exactly. The head. So just want to welcome everyone wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Andrea Nichols. I'm a strategic account director for the retail and CPG industries at Neustar. Just a little bit about Neustar real fast. We partner with brands to help them better understand their consumers. We help them with their consumers' journeys across all of the channels. And we also help them optimize their marketing investments through our proprietary measurement solutions. Just want to give you a little background on Neustar, but wanted to dive right in because we've got an awesome group of women here to talk to. I'm thrilled to be doing this webinar. I've done a lot of research on your company. I indulged myself in tasting the wines last night and have to say they were fantastic. I had the Sauvignon Blanc from Chile. Is it Chile or is it Chile? I'm just gonna.
It's what you want to make it.
It's what exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know what? That's a perfect way to kind of segue into what your brand is about, actually, because it doesn't matter if we say Chile or Chile, because I think I don't want to paraphrase, but the goal behind, one of the goals is to make luxury wine accessible to all in a can.
You nailed it.
I think it's fantastic. So that being said, love to jump in and, allow everyone that's watching this to learn more about the three of you and, your professional journey, what got you here. If you had strong women leadership along the way that kind of paved the road for you, and just really kind of the story behind Archer Roose. I think it's a phenomenal one, and I'm excited for everyone listening to hear. So Marian, I'd love to start with you because you are the founder, chief feather ruffler, as it were, which I'm likening to kind of a disruptive theme.
I think just in general, that's generally my MO. Come in and bring chaos wherever I go. But yeah, no, that's such a great question. The Archer Roose started around my dining room table with my husband and I really wanted to just start a craft wine brand that, as a drinker, I really longed for a brand that shared my values around sustainability, transparency, what we like to call consciously crafted. So I care about what I put in my body, and there are more than 70 additives in the wine industry that you don't have to list on a label. So we're the first canned wine company to actually list all of our ingredients and to share the story of how the journey of how the grape was grown to how it ended up in your can right there, on the back. The story, I guess my personal story of how did I end up here? I have been very blessed in my life to have been given a number of female examples that have really kind of driven me forward. I am one of three girls raised by a very strong father who felt very strongly that we have great role models. And so I went to an all-girls school, and actually the first person that I'd say really influenced me was a renegade nun who taught me history. And she was a phenomenal woman, huge civil rights activist, not who you think of at all. When you think of nun, she never rapped me on my knuckles or anything. It was really just a kind, incredibly intelligent woman who really taught me to question and to question everything. And for her, that was actually in conjunction with her relationship with God, was to trust, was to question, and to have this ongoing kind of debate. But that really extended to everything she did, and that was something that I definitely took by osmosis. My second great role model was my godmother, and she is a kick-ass working mom, the breadwinner for her family. And she is so kind too, and really like the matriarch for our extended family. And so I don't know how she does it all, but what she really the example that she shares with me every day is that work really hard, leave everything on the table, but remember what you're doing it for. And to me, the combination of those characters is definitely what informs the ethos of the company and the type of people that we look to recruit. And because my path into wine was very winding, I fell in love with wine at a young age that I won't disclose on this phone call, on this webinar. But I've always loved the combination of storytelling and wine, but also the way that like there's something primal about huddling around a fire and sharing our stories with one another. And that appealed to me always. And then as I went through my career, I always had this entrepreneurial bent, I founded a nonprofit in high school, then went to college and did a lot of entrepreneurship events, but I also majored in drinking and having a lot of fun. So I always say that if I could go back and do those 4 years again, I actually would really love to. And then I graduated and went into finance. And that's when I realized pretty quickly that I was not cut out for a big company and that I really liked building things. And so I started a literary magazine that ended up being nationally distributed. And I ended up moving down to Washington, D.C. and working in public-private partnerships. So essentially, Melinda Gates would stand out on a stage at Davos and say, if you can get a bottle of Coke anywhere in the world, why can't you get a vaccine? And it was actually my job to help put that partnership together. Oh my goodness. And but I always loved wine, and that training in multi-stakeholder engagement turned out to be perfect for managing investors and the complexities of selling alcohol in the United States through a system called the 3-tiered system. And it was literally kind of all just came back to I kind of thought I had my dream job and I wasn't happy. I was working at the World Bank and my mom got sick and my husband and I had this crazy idea. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to quit my job. I'm not going to do anything so crazy as that. I'm just going to work on this business plan off the side of my desk and see what happens. And just one thing led to another. And finally, it got to a place where it was like, we had distribution, we had our supply chain set up. We were either going to give this a go or we weren't. And I jumped in 2 feet first. So life is kind of funny sometimes.
That's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. It's very inspiring.
Well, you have to drink a glass of wine in order to sometimes digest everything that's happened in your life and all the crazy decisions that led you to where you were.
It's true. Or a few. Alicia, can we segue over to you, and would you mind sharing your story?
Sure. I mean, my story is not what you would expect. I'm originally from Chicago. I've lived in Boston for 30 years now. And I was raised by the most amazing group of strong, Black, gorgeous women. And to live in a household with 15 people, I'm an only child, and I had a large extended family. And my poor uncle was the only male in the house. He was the best cleaner, though. He was amazing. But being raised by my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my mom, and my grandmother would tell me, because I'm fairly tall and I used to hunch over, and she'd say, straighten your back and walk like you have somewhere to go. And I'm like, okay. And off I went. And after college, and I've always worked in restaurants to pay for school, I fell in love with wine, which is no one in my family ever drank wine. So how did I discover this? Just like Marian, I was maybe a little bit older than Marian was when I started drinking wine, but it was, it literally gave me goosebumps the first time I had a red Burgundy, which is a very expensive, unfortunate habit to have. But I migrated from looking to be a neuropsychologist to wanting to know everything there was about wine. And I was fortunate that the restaurant I was working in Boston said, yeah, let's do that. And I built an amazing team. We were all female team. No one had seen that before. My 2 assistant somms, one was from Bordeaux and the other was a descendant of India. And so we were this eclectic female diverse team, which sold $3.5 million worth of wine a year in Boston. Like many people, you make a decision. I got married to this gorgeous guy and I'm having children, and what do I want to do? Do I want to stay in restaurants where you're always working while everyone else is playing, or did I want to be home for dinner? So I transitioned to being pretty much a full-time mom and also consulting on the side, which allowed me to keep my sanity and also to continue to do the thing that I love, which is drink wine and share wine with as many people as possible. And I now have a son in college and a junior in high school, and this time was just ripe for me to really go full-time in. I'd been on the wine buying side for so long. I wanted to help sort of democratize wine, and I loved Marian's her mantra that that's what she wanted to do in so many different ways. Because last year, I sort of came back a little bit more full time in the summer when I helped launch a nonprofit called Wine Unify, which is a education. Sorry, I'm not the best with virtual. I think I'm just.
But I just noticed that my women in brand marketing thing is flip-flop, so I apologize for that if anybody could see that.
So Wine Unify was something that we thought was necessary. I had been looking around for so many years for the next generation of people of color in the industry for so many reasons. And one, I was tired of being one of the only ones. And two, I just thought it was an amazing industry that so many people weren't aware of. So we created something where we were going to welcome, elevate, and amplify the voices of color in the industry. And by doing that, supplying them with everything they needed. And that was not just paying for their WSET, the Wine Spirit and Education Trust's credentials, but also giving them the wine that they needed to study with, giving them all the tools. And I lead up mentorship. And I pair people individually with some of the best industry veterans we have. It's unbelievable. The people do come for the education, as we say, but they also stay for the culture and the community. It's amazing what we've created. I'm sorry I'm saying this, but just like I'm proud of my children, I'm so incredibly proud of this. And we founded this on the belief that positive and active energy for change actually mattered. And so that's sort of who I am. And I've been talking to Marian, someone introduced us, and we were just being friends. And and talking about the wine industry in Boston where we both live. And then a few months later, she's like, I'm thinking this. And I thought, I love what you're thinking. And I absolutely want to come and help do whatever I can. I love the people I work with. I love what we stand for. I love the wines that are in the can. And I can't wait to see what we do going forward.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Sara, would you like to share your story, please?
Sure. I hadn't intended to go back in time to where I started from, but I'm inspired by Marian and Alicia sort of their childhood angles. I grew up in a really small town in Pennsylvania, and our matriarch of our family was my grandmother. She was a really strong woman, really taught me work ethic and never idle hands kind of thing. But it was always interesting growing up because she had two daughters who had each two daughters. So by the time my sister was giving birth to a boy, my lovely nephew Theo, we all kind of looked around the dinner table at Thanksgiving and we're like, what are we going to do with him? We don't know. So it was lovely kind of seeing, each of my two cousins have very different careers. My sister is in the legal profession. So I got to see a lot of different types of women kind of form themselves over time. For my personal career, I started in the in-kind unit at the American Red Cross, where I fell in love with product, and then I was encouraged to go get my MBA in brand management focus. But then from there, I spent a lot of time in large CPG companies like Heinz and Mondelez and Colgate, where I learned a ton, and I think really built my fundamentals there. So now what I'm loving about being at Archer Roose is, as Mary mentioned, it's a mission and values-driven organization, so I can kind of appeal to my early career of my a little bit of bleeding heart and the nonprofit passion and apply the skills that I've learned from the larger organizations to try to bring marketing discipline to our daily lives for Archer Roose. And I think, that training ground allowed me to really just learn a lot because there's so many different marketing structures that you can approach. So I'm grateful for that time to now be able to think, okay, well, what are the best ways to do this for this growing business and building a new high growth brand as we go forward.
Sounds like a perfect fit. So fantastic. Thank you so much. So from here, I would love to segue into kind of like what what's happening at Archer Roose today, and what's your vision for the future? What's your day-to-day role, if you will? What are your top priorities for the year and beyond? And then also kind of what keeps you up at night? I know that's a handful of questions, but just if we could go, in round robin and talk about some of those things and really talk about the company and, what the future holds, that would be fantastic. Marian, can we start with you?
Sure. Well, we've had a really exciting couple of months, really exciting year at Archer Roose, where we brought on Elizabeth Banks as an investor and spokesperson for the brand. And the vision behind bringing her on was really, how do we democratize and make wine more accessible? And how do we bring somebody on who's not afraid to make fun of herself, quite frankly, and like take and really kind of make fun of some of the self-seriousness that this industry can bring to the table. And so we've had so much fun onboarding her as a partner. And she's really critical in driving our brand awareness, because our view, or the vision of Archer Roose, is really to make a wine brand that's all about our end consumer, who, where she shops, what she cares about, what she wants to drink, and what she wants to explore drinking, and then make sure that our wine is easily accessible and deliverable to her. And so that's kind of the big vision. And what's kind of powering that, and the pieces that we're currently working on, is we're in the process of launching 2,000 new points of distribution with partnerships with H-E-B, Meijer, Wegmans, and Walmart in Florida. And then we are also launching a partnership with GoPuff, which will allow us to do 30-minute delivery in over 200 metros. So imagine, thinking that you would really like to be sipping on some Archer Roose bubbly and being able to swipe up and just getting it delivered right to your bed. That is a key goal of ours to have in place by the end of Q4. And then finally, it's really about building out this digital community. I think that wine clubs are a great concept, but historically they've been really transactional. And what we really want to do is create an environment that's highly interactive, that really rewards loyalty to Archer Roose, and ultimately where we can build out SKUs that will allow people to have fun and discover kind of different and cool parts of wine.
I think you can definitely tell that's happening because the blogs on your site are amazing. I mean, you've got recipes, it's great content. So I think the community, you're laying the groundwork for really bringing in the community and make people engage in your site.
Well, Sara and her team have been working really hard on that, so I won't steal any of her thunder in talking more about that. But in terms of what keeps me up at night, I'm an entrepreneur, Andrea. So if I'm not up at night, slightly paranoid, do I really exist? I mean, that's an existential question for me. I would say though, right now, what is giving me ulcers is just a lot as the world has reawakened from its, COVID slumber. Global supply chain has definitely been absolutely nuts. And so making sure that, luckily the people who love our wine keep drinking our wine, and we just want to make sure that we are producing it and bringing it to them in a timely manner, and that they don't have to wait too long for it. And that is definitely not an easy job right now. So my hat's off to our ops team for really tackling that one.
I can imagine that is definitely a challenge. You hear about that in every industry right now. Seems to be the hiccup for sure.
I mean, when Starbucks tells you can't have your caramel macchiato, it's a really big deal.
No kidding. It's true. Or like egg bites or something, because you're right. Absolutely. Alicia, can I pass the baton over to you, please?
Sure. So I had the wine portfolio for Archer Roose, and so my job is multifold. One of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm stabilizing our current portfolio, analyzing to see that everything that should be there is there, and that is what's driving our wholesale channels, like giving people, as I like to say, what they want. But to Marian's point about COVID and the world reopening, I think how we bought wine last year is how we're going to buy wine in many ways going forward. The whole DTC was coming upon us, but I think COVID fast forwarded it by maybe 20 years. So I am trying to build a really robust direct to consumer end of Archer Roose, where we're bringing people things that are cool. We're creating the trends. We are really having fun and hopefully creating, as Marian and Sara like to say, raving fans. I think that some of the things that we're trying to do, no one else has done, and that doesn't matter because we can do it and we will do it. But if you're asking me what's keeping me up at night, everything I just said. The other part of my job is industry awareness, brand awareness, category awareness, industry relationships. And I come from a fine dining wine background, and I love what we're doing. We're putting delicious luxury wines in a can that makes it accessible. My grandmother could not open a bottle of wine to save her soul. She could open a can. So I think that we are also allowing other people to try this fantastic beverage without the snobbery, without the pretension. You know, it's a Tuesday night, or, you know, maybe something more special than that. But I like Tuesday nights and our bubbly and some French fries. So.
Absolutely. Sara?
My vision for my role within Archer Roose is I'm hoping and wishing to set up a world-class marketing organization. You know, we're building out the team right now, and I'm hoping to fill the roles with impactful team members that will drive the business and be really proud to work for the company. I think that you're hearing from all three of us that there is this high level of passion that is brought to this. So I'm really thinking passion first as we figure out the right fits for laying the groundwork for the future. And then, of course, building the brand for longevity. I'm highly focused on creating and leveraging some of our distinctive assets, like our icon Archer Roose on her moose, so that someday consumers will just go into a store or an e-com environment and just say, I want the one with the moose. And it's just super clear and we can get the job done. So as we look to the top priorities, yeah, it's really about telling those stories throughout the rest of the year and really leveraging our new Chief Creative Officer, Elizabeth Banks, and telling her stories to really help to elevate the brand awareness, as well as really create that world of raving fans, as Alicia mentioned. I think that, you know, what keeps me up at night is that we have so many opportunities and it's so exciting. That we're always trying to figure out, okay, how do we tackle this immediacy strategically while also building the right foundation for the growth of the future? So trying to balance those things is definitely something that is always top of mind. How can you build a structure that will unlock just a lot of potential while you're kind of building the plane as it's flying?
Those are exciting challenges to have too.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So, you know, we talked about when we spoke yesterday about queuing up the Elizabeth Banks ad spot so everyone could see. I'd love to share that with the audience and then kind of regroup after it.
Mama wants
here we go.
Can of wine.
One day I come home from work and Elizabeth Banks is here inside my house. I mean, I know her movies, but I don't know her. There she is, just rummaging through my kitchen. She won't leave, ever.
Morning, sunshine.
Here's the thing. Elizabeth Banks really knows wine.
Nice citrus and peach on the palate. I should be the spokesperson! Marian!
I said no thanks. A celebrity beverage endorser?
Marian!
That's so cliche. But she just told me that she works here now.
Marian, how the hell do you spell sommelier? Is that even how you say it?
Next thing I know, she owns half the company. F me, right? But we're making it work.
Your toilet's clogged. Archer Roose, luxury wine in cans.
That's fantastic. It's really so awesome. It is great. So talk about the response that you've been getting to the ad.
Sure. Yeah. Sentiment on the ads from consumers has been amazing. I pulled a quote from our Instagram feed to kind of help to bring it to life a little bit. And one follower said, I've done my fair share of advertising and this ad is genius. I mean, absolutely or I absolutely know I'm being marketed to, but I don't care because it's so damn funny. So I think that the engagement has been very, very positive. It's also been exciting to get some traction around the PR around the announcement. We had over 120 million in visibility and reach just from kind of sharing the good news that Elizabeth was coming on board. And, from the ad itself, we even had pickups from some of the best marketing pubs like Ad Age, Ad Week, and Media Post. So I think that we're really excited about the momentum that this is allowing for us to start to kind of run after. And it's starting to show dividends even in some of our just general KPIs. Our followers are up in the month of June, 152% on Instagram. So we're really excited to kind of be out of the gate with a really, really funny spot. And then we're building the rest of the Elizabeth Banks kind of story arc so that we can keep that content coming in future days and really hopefully continue to be to just build upon that new baseline.
And she'll also contribute to the company as well, right? I mean, she's also part of the organization now. And in what ways will she be contributing?
Yeah, so she's our new Chief Creative Officer. And so in doing so, we have a great agency on board called Colossus that is helping us to kind of think through the overall arc, but really it'll be a partnership in trying to figure out, okay, what stories do we want to tell? How do we want to tell them? Even on this spot, we went back and forth on some specific edits that Elizabeth was really excited to kind of like tweak and make sure that the story felt really strong from her point of view. So it's going to be a wonderful partnership, and she's going to be highly, highly active, which we're really, really excited because then it can be authentic, and we're really excited
exactly
to have that come on board.
Right.
And she's made it very clear that she has lots of thoughts on the new wines that are coming out in the portfolio, but she's going to do a lot of tasting in order to get
That's great. So as far as additional brand stories that you're trying to share with the audience and with the worldly population, let's touch upon that for a minute, because I do know at the core, some of the research I've done, the Archer Roose character is, inherent in the brand: curiosity, world travel. Are those the key types of messages you're trying to get that out? I also feel like there's also, the sustainability aspect of it. So if you could shed light a little bit on some of the brand stories that you're trying to get out into the marketplace, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. I think that you hit the one big priority for me right now is telling the stories of Archer Roose. I like to call her the icon because so many of our values are really embodied within her. And it's just a lot of rich territory to utilize her as a means to tell everyone about our values, about the products, because the products, we can tell stories about the places that she visited, and these are kind of her postcards home to loved ones. The wines are, and so that's rich with territory, and then we'll be able to tell some stories that help to bring to life in a kind of a fictional, fun point of view. The values of our organization, whether it's the sustainability or like female founder, etc. So there's a lot there. We're really kind of approaching it in a bit of a literary way. As you saw, our blog content is something that has helped to really, really build the brand. So we'll be building out more stories to live in that world and to live beyond, so that we can really develop the brand as a whole. And then there will, of course, be continued content development on recipe strategies and some other, because what we really want to do is make sure that we're building strong, engaging content that consumers will want to hear, rather than trying to always just push, our standard brand messaging. So that's really the wish for it in the blog space as well.
Great. And I would imagine there's tremendous collaboration too on the wine portfolio side, Alicia, with keeping the brand in sync and making sure that there's a story to tell with respect to which wine is selected next and is appropriate and what's the story behind it. I think that's
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, there's so many stories to tell, and I love talking about wine through stories and meeting the people who create them and seeing the lands where they're made. It's an agricultural product. It's fermented grape juice. So what makes it special other than it's delicious? There are a couple of people we're looking at. Someone in Hungary who returned to his ancestral home from Canada after his family was gone for so many years and switched careers and is now making amazing wines. There's a winemaker in South Africa that I'm talking to whose ancestors were awarded the land after their owner, I guess I will say, passed away. He passed it off to them. And she's farming and making wine in a wonderful winery that they're gifting her a space. And those are great stories. And so when I'm looking at wine, yes, it has to taste good, but it has to have a reason and a passion and behind it as well. I think it definitely connects with what we're trying to do here.
We talk a lot about the new tradition at Archer Roose, and a lot of that comes from this idea that the last 50 years in wine or 100 years in wine have really been dominated by the male white collector, and the whole industry has sort of been oriented that way. And as we think about the daily wine drinker who's not opening up a bottle, who really just wants to have a glass, there's that's a wide tent. And so one of the things that our portfolio is not there today, but that Alicia is doing a great job of helping spearhead, is how do we make sure that the people who make our wine also look like the people we want to drink our wine?
It's funny because I was talking to my mom this morning and sharing with her what I was doing today. And I was explaining, what the brand is about. And she's like, that's the best idea I've ever heard in my life. She's like, because she lives alone, she's older, and she's like, I don't want to open up a bottle of wine. I want to have a glass. And she's like, I'm going to find it today. So I went on your site, told her where she could find it in Maryland, and she's off to get it today. So yeah, I mean, the accessibility part is just so key and so spot on for a whole, different group of the population.
Particularly because you deserve your luxury, right? Like, we care about making a really good, high quality, consciously crafted product. But at the end of the day, wine's a treat, right? Because it's an alcoholic beverage. But all of us deserve a little something to get through the week, or a little something to celebrate as a capstone to your day.
Absolutely. So I think we have a few minutes. I know we need to get to some Q&A, but I thought we'd wrap up with a little bit of fun questions. Round robin again. What is your current book or that you'd recommend, or your favorite binge watching program right now?
For me, I'm TV obsessed. I love anything visual. So over the pandemic, I fell hard into the Marvel universe. So anything that they're putting out, I'm totally consuming. So Loki, I mean, you name it. I mean, massive geek over here. So that's what I'm into right now.
That's wild.
Alicia? Yes. So at the height of the pandemic, I was walking 10 miles a day, and I listened to a gazillion books. And I'm reading something right now called The Other Black Girl, which is like Get Out meets really scary things and like at the workplace. But the book that I go back to every now and again is called Nothing to See Here, where children are spontaneously combusting and possibly ruining their father's cabinet appointment in the government. So it makes me laugh out loud, and would highly recommend it.
Oh, that sounds great. I got to check that out.
I know, no kidding. Never heard of it. We got to check it out. Marian, how about you?
So it's summertime. So I read a ton during the pandemic as well. And but I am hardcore into really fun escape novels at the moment. And so I just finished the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is so good. It's written by the same author as Daisy Jones and the Six, but anyway, the book is about a 1940s, 50s, 60s movie star, kind of like Elizabeth Taylor. And it kind of unveils the secret that's beneath all of these marriages that she's had. And a great kind of look at the arc of Hollywood and women in a very sexist industry and all this stuff. And it's totally engrossing. So that is the book that I would definitely recommend to kick off your summer. And from a binge watch perspective, so I am like an old woman in my soul, and I love masterpiece theater. And I'm currently rewatching Grantham, which is like, this vicar who's very good looking solves mysteries in Oxford, England in the 1950s. So if you're feeling a little like a granny, but you want some good eye candy, I definitely suggest it.
I will check that out. So I just wanted to let the audience know, please send questions if you have any. I think we probably have about 10 minutes left or less. So just wanted to put that out there. And one more fun question. Well, not one more. We could have several, but this is a fun one. So tapping into Archer Roose's curiosity, where would you ladies like to travel to next in the world?
I'm dying to go on safari.
Mm.
I have a 15-month-old, almost 16-month-old, and his favorite, like, he loves animals. And I actually, to be even more specific, there's this place called Giraffe Manor in Kenya, where like the giraffes just wander around, and then you can go on safari and see all the animals. And my dream is to take him there and drink a lot of great South African wine.
I would love to do that too. I've never been on a safari, but I've heard they're just incredible. Sara?
I like to think of wine as being people's passport, and especially during COVID, when you could go to places, you could travel through wine. And I actually honeymooned in South Africa. And I don't know if Marian has noticed that I'm putting wines in our portfolio to places I want to go back to. So I'm hoping they start making wine in Hawaii at some point. But if I really do want to return to South Africa, and I want to see the other half of Iceland as well. There's so many amazing places to go. So I'm happy that the world is reopening.
It's a good one.
Fair.
I feel like mine's a little basic compared to those two. I'm dying to go to Paris. I had a big birthday last year, and we had hoped to spend it there. And so I'm really looking forward to getting back to Paris and bringing some friends along with me, and just enjoying all that city has to offer, wine and cheese and all.
Yes.
Sara,
absolutely.
That's not basic. That's my absolute favorite city. That is not basic.
I think you have to be dead inside to not love Paris. It's one of these places that the best part about it is not to have any plans. Don't make any plans and just see where
just
the
wander.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey Ryan, we're having a good time.
I mean, I wish I had one of these cans of wine with me right now, because video to the conversations. This has been an amazing. I mean, look, it's 12 o'clock where I'm at right now, so I feel like this warrants a nice little drink on after a holiday weekend. This has been amazing. This is really cool.
Well, thank you so much for having us. And I agree. Everything is always better over a can of wine, but it's been really wonderful to get to share some of our story and what we're working on. And I get to show off the work of these amazing ladies who inspire me every day.
You are